Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. Today we'll be recording episode 40, which will be the third episode of Chapter 5. To be honest, the gap between episode 39 and 40 is a little longer than I expected, or I would have waited a few more days to upload episode 39. I thought I'd be able to come back and just record within the next day or two, and it didn't turn out like that because my basement has... There have been some projects in my basement recently, like redoing the carpet and whatnot. So there's been a lot of noise down there, and for one, I figured you guys wouldn't want to hear that noise, and I also didn't want to hear that noise while I played, so I waited to play. I didn't want to play during all that noise. I figured it would have been distracting for me and you guys. Or I don't know, maybe hearing Beastie Boys or, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, like max volume in the background while couches are getting moved, is what you guys wanted in the middle of a serious Higu scene. I can tell you right now, it's not what I wanted, though. So I didn't play those days. I expected to have time at the end of the night to record, and I kind of just didn't. They weren't finishing till late enough that I was like, yeah, I'm not recording at this hour. I got a job now. I can't... Well, I can, but I try not to stay up till like 3 a.m. anymore. But anyways, that doesn't matter because we're here now. This is probably going to be an interesting episode. I'm really looking forward to this one because at the end of last episode, we got Shion talking to Mion and saying like, hey, let me swap with you again. I'm going to meet him at the school, right, regarding Satoshi. This is in response to hearing about, like, hearing from Rena how things are for Satoshi and how he seems to be inflicted by the curse, which, as I mentioned before, might kind of throw off some of my theories and my timelines at the very least, but that's fine, honestly. That's fine. I can live with that. But we'll have to see how that all plays out to maybe adjust those timelines a little bit. I still think my core ideas are mostly right, just maybe not the whole. It takes exactly 3 days, and there's 6 days, and there's 2 stages of 3 days, which I already wasn't super sure on this, but I felt pretty confident at least in the last set of 3, and it doesn't seem like you start to experience symptoms and it gets really bad, peak symptoms, and then possibly your death within 3 days. But it doesn't seem like that's likely to be true. And in retrospect, actually, that was almost certainly not true anyways. Because I don't remember exactly what it was, but, or like the dates, but at the end of chapter 3, Keiichi does the interview and then is hearing footsteps again the next day, and then the next day after that, he's dead. And that's not even 3 days. So I guess in retrospect, that maybe was more of a soft rule, like a suggestion of 3 days, not like a it will be 3 days kind of thing. I don't know. Anyways, let's kind of jump into this chapter. Like I said, I think this might end up being a pretty big one. So I'm curious how things will play out. Like, what will Shion's time at the school entail? Will Satoshi eventually realize this isn't Mion, that there's a difference? Will we get to see Satoshi visibly experiencing some of these symptoms? Or will he be, like, good at hiding them still? I don't know, right? There's a lot of interesting stuff we could get today, so let's go ahead and jump into it.
Hi, 委員長号令。
Oh, she didn't just mean, like, meet him at the school. She's gonna be at class all day. That was a misunderstanding in my head. Oh, man. I feel like this is how they're gonna learn there's a difference between Shion and Mion. I imagine Mion gave a lot of this information. She's not gonna let Shion walk in there not knowing she's imitating the class president. She probably knows what to say. She probably understands most of her relationships with them. Heck, I wouldn't be shocked if Mion, like, gave her the school layout to memorize. But, like, I just wouldn't be shocked if there's some kind of error, That kind of tips her off. For a moment, I forgot that the class president was me.
起立 委員長も少し寝不足みたいですね。
That's definitely what it is. I kind of think there's a chance Chie picks up on it, to be honest. I mentioned this earlier. Or I saw this at the beginning of this chapter, but it mentions Chie as one of the characters featured in this chapter. In all fairness, this could just be an indication that, yes, she's quite literally here. But I'm curious if she's going to be a major player.
最近は寝苦しい夜が続きます。でも、しっかりと睡眠はとるように。
Always great advice.
いいですね、皆さん。
I'm not sure this place can be called a school, because there's so many different age groups. It's like a kindergarten and an elementary school blended together. Since I'd heard already about what this place was like, I didn't feel that uncomfortable. It wasn't too difficult to act like Mion here. For now. As Sis told me, Satoshi-kun looked exhausted. I said hi to him, but he ignored me. Since I knew what he'd been going through, his pain looked apparent to me. I was interested in another person in this classroom. Satoko? Satoko. Satoshi-kun's little sister. She looked as worn out as Satoshi-kun, emotionless, like an abandoned doll. Everybody in this room was aware of their circumstances, but no one could do anything for them. So they just acted as though nothing was wrong. Mion will only let me have this one day. If I slacked off even a little bit, today would be over with quickly. I had to figure out what I should do in this limited time. I should probably talk to Satoshi-kun. About what? Anything goes. Cheer him up, sympathize with him. Anything will do. More than anything, I just wanted to chat with him. However, Sis had told me. She said Satoshi-kun didn't communicate much with her lately, and had distanced himself from her. I figured I shouldn't talk to him too casually. I wanted to, but maybe it was better to leave him alone. I needed to keep Sis's warnings in mind, but instead, I decided to ignore them. I mean, who could have seen this coming? What was she gonna do, not talk to Satoshi? Like, let's be for real. I looked for Satoshi-kun during lunch break. He was walking as if looking for a place where he could be alone. I caught him in the hallway.
Satoshi-kun!
He turned around, startled by my voice. His facial expression surprised me. He was scowling, clearly a sign of rejection. But couldn't hesitate. I'd lose my only chance if I did.
さ、元気?
He gave me a look as if saying, "Do I look fine to you?" I never expected to see an expression like that on his face. I felt like my heart was being torn into pieces. As I looked down, he spoke to me. I felt a little glad, but the next thing he said changed that.
元気だよ。他に用はないなら行くよ。昼休みは一人になりたいんだ。
Oof.
そっか。バイトが大変なんだよね。疲れてるから一人になって休みたいもんね。今日もなんでしょ？今日はどこで？
Sis had found several jobs for him. He worked at a few different places. He was helping out when necessary at any of the shops Mion introduced him to. As a result, he constantly had to do different tasks in a different environment almost every time. On top of that, he requested high-paying jobs from Mion because he wanted a large sum of money as soon as possible. In other words, he chose to mostly do manual labor. He was exhausted every day because he wasn't that physically strong. I mean, I'll be honest, that's probably not the major reason, but that probably is contributing.
どこでもいいだろう。それに、僕がどこで働くか、ミオンなら知ってることじゃないのかい？
Mion did help him get the job, yet Satoshi-kun didn't look thankful for that opportunity. This wasn't like him at all. It made me feel sad.
そうだよね。ごめん。
要はそれで終わりかい？
He sounded so harsh. Why was he being like that? Would he ever stroke my head again? I couldn't help my tears. They flowed onto my cheeks. Satoshi-kun looked confused for a moment, but then he frowned again.
ごめん。監督がさ、また練習に来てほしいなって言ってたよ。監
督にはもうチームは辞めたいって伝えたはずだよ。戻る気はないし。
たまにはさ、パッと体を動かして汗を流すのもいいと思うんだよ。ほら、スポーツっていろいろと。
興味ない。
I have things I want to say, but I'm going to let this play out. I didn't know why he was being so hostile towards me. Why did he hate me so much? I was left bewildered.
なんでどうして違
バイトで忙しいから。めんどくさい。
うよなんで私がここまで嫌われなくちゃならないの
自分の胸に聞けばいいじゃないか。
自分の胸に何を私が何をしたのわかんないよ、サトシ君
I couldn't control my emotions any longer. Streaks of tears ran down my cheeks. Satoshi-kun gave me a hateful glare and walked away without saying another word. Is this what it felt like? This is what I was going to say. Is this what it felt like for everyone to be around chapter 1 and maybe chapter 3 Keiichi? I couldn't even stop him. If I tried, he'd hurt me again with another cutting remark. I couldn't bear that, so I just watched him walk away. I wiped my tears and went back to the classroom. I heard somebody crying from inside. What's going on? I looked around the room to see. It was Satoko. I saw her bento box on the floor. I asked one of her classmates what happened, and it seemed that Satoko had bumped into somebody's shoulder when she stood up to go wash the box out. That was all. But Satoko was crying as if afraid she was going to be chided badly. Yeah, because she is afraid of that. What happened was very minor. She could just pick up the bento box and things would be fine. It looked like the lid came a little loose, but it was definitely fixable. She didn't have to cry like that. Yet Satoko started begging through her tears.
助けてよ助けてよニーニー
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Not this music. No, wait, this is not good. Isn't this the music that played when Keiichi, ascended during the scene, right after the scene? It is. Right after Satoko's breakdown in Chapter 3. Interesting. So I feel like they want to draw that comparison. Because of what happened with Satoshi-kun, I couldn't suppress my emotions very well. So instead, they exploded. I stormed up to Satoko while elbowing her classmates aside. What are you doing? What are you doing? I grabbed her by the head, then threw her into the wall? What? Satoko screamed. She didn't seem to understand what had happened. I don't understand what had happened. She was shedding tears and shivering. She must be wondering why I did that.
なんであんたがそういう目に遭うか理解できる助けてニーニー
Satoko cried for her brother's help again, and so I grabbed her head and threw her again. Satoko stumbled and crashed into a desk. The desk fell and the contents of the drawers scattered about. Satoko didn't even stand up. She just crouched and trembled while looking up at me.
助けて助けてニーニーニーニー
This is genuinely deranged behavior.
あんたがそんなだから
If you weren't like that, Satoshi-kun wouldn't have to suffer. Don't you get it? That's what I wanted to say, but I was too angry to utter another word. I mean, he's gonna come back and hate you. I picked up a bunch of textbooks from the floor and threw them at her face. Dude,
泣きたければ泣けばいいでもね泣いたってね何も解決しないなんで泣くの泣けば誰かが助けてくれるからその助けてくれる人があんたの代わりにどれだけ傷ついてるかなんて想像もつかないでしょ分かってるのあんたの罪が あんたなんかいなければいい。苦しいなら死ね。へそでも噛んで勝手に死んじゃえばいい。サトシ君まで苦しめるな。一人で苦しんで一人で勝手に死ね。お前なんか死んでしまえ。
What? I mean, like, this is just deranged. I don't even know what to say. We're just gonna keep moving. How in the world is Mion's reputation not completely cooked after this? Her desperate cries only increased my irritation.
泣けばいいと思うな。サトシ君にすがれば済むと思うな。甘えるんじゃない。お前さえいなければ。お前さえいなければ。
He's gonna come back, and he will never talk to you again. I kept on throwing things at her. Satoko curled up to protect herself and cried even harder. Yeah, thank you, Rika! Like... At that point, a girl with long hair ran up and huddled over her. I knew who that was. Rika Furude. One of Satoko's only friends.
サトコをいじめないでなのです。サトコはかわいそうなのです。いじめてはダメなのです。
かわいそうだから何をしても許されると思ってる。かわいそうだからサトシ君に寄りかかってもいいわけ。甘やかしてるんじゃないよ。こいつがどこまでも甘えてるから。サトシ君が辛い思いをしなくちゃならないんだ。ダメ
なのです。サトコをいじめちゃダメなのです。
Rika also became the target of my anger. Dude, there's a... No, never mind.
私はね、その甘えきったサトコの根性を教育してやってんだよ。
It's not usually how you teach people something.
邪魔しやがると、あんたの頭から叩き割るよ。
I grabbed a chair and lifted it over my head. Ooh. Oh my god. It wouldn't hurt only a little if I threw this thing at them. Rika tightly closed her eyes and covered Satoko with her body. Dude, she's going to annihilate you, I think. I didn't care what the consequences would be. I didn't care if I hurt them.
やめて。
Yeah.
みーちゃん。
Rena returned to the classroom and shouted at me. I was gonna say. Then Sachi-kun rushed in while pushing Rena aside. Like, what have you accomplished here? Nothing. Seeming to have grasped the situation immediately, he charged straight at me. Until my body had hit the locker, I didn't understand what had happened. There was a loud crashing noise. I'd left a dent in it. I crouched there in pain.
サトコ！大丈夫か？サトコ！
にーにー。
Satoko pushed Rika aside, jumped at her brother, and started crying again.
どうしたんだよ。一体どうしてサトコが
私ね、何もしてないのにね、ミオンさんが
どういうことだよ、ミオン！
Sachi-kun shouted at me while clutching his sister. He looked fierce. Dude, I wonder why.
どういうことって。どこが何をしたよ。僕たちが何をしたよ。なんでいつもいじめられなきゃならないんだよ。どうしてだよ。
He released Satoko and rushed up to me, grabbing me by the neck.
さっきサトシ君は私に自分の胸に聞けって言ったよね。ならサトコの胸に聞いてみりゃいいじゃない。何を。サトシ君だって自分で認めてるんでしょ。サトコがあんたにべったり頼ってるからサトシ君の重荷になってるんでしょ。サトコがもっとしっかりしてればサトシ君がこんなに大変な思いをすることなんてない。そいつが全ての元凶なの。
That's still just an insane viewpoint to have. Like, look, I can get, like, objectively, there's a little truth in that. But, like, actually blaming the younger sister who's being abused in the scenario is still just kind of insanity to me. I don't believe what I said was wrong, but after hearing it, Satoshi-kun went berserk. Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. Also, his voice actor is killing this. Satoshi-kun grabbed my hair and threw me to the wall, just like I did to Satoko. However, I wasn't going to back down. I no longer had any control over my emotions at all.
Satoshi-kun だって、Satokoを甘やかしすぎてるよ。あんたがそうやって際限なく甘やかすから、そいつはいつまで経ってもあんたにすがってばかりなんだよ。お前に僕たちの何がわかる？何がわかるってんだよ。当然や、母さんを。そして今度は僕たちか。それがその崎家のやり方なんだろ。どこまでも村の裏切り者をいじめ抜く。そんなに楽しいかよ。
So he firmly believes the Sonozakis killed his parents.
弱い者いじめが。もうやめて。
That was Rena's voice. She stepped in, looking as fierce as a demon.
サトシ君、もうやめてあげて。みーちゃんに悪気はなかった。サトシ君の力になってあげたくて、その気持ちがちょっとずれて空回りしちゃっただけ。
Yeah, a little? Dude, she threw a little kid's head into a wall twice. What?
ね。
Satoshi-kun looked like he wanted to say something back, but he chose not to. The way Rena can just immediately mediate things is insane.
みーちゃんももうやめて。みーちゃんが誰よりもサトシ君のことを心配してるのは知ってる。だけれど、こんなやり方はそれの解決にはならない。そんなのちょっと落ち着いて考えればわかることだよね。
Since Satoshi-kun didn't say anything, I kept quiet too.
ほら、さとこちゃんもお弁当箱を落としたくらいで泣くことはないよ。ね？落ち着いた？さとこ、僕がお弁当箱を拾ってあげますよ。
Rika started picking up the bento box while its owner continued to cry.
みんな、片付けを手伝ってくれる？もうすぐ先生がカレー菜園から戻ってくる頃だよ。これでもう喧嘩は終わったから、先生には余計なことは言わない。
I'm guessing a word never got out.
いいね。
Classmates looked at each other and nodded, and started picking up the stuff on the floor.
はい、サトシ君もみーちゃんも仲直りの握手。ほら。
ごめん。こんなつもりじゃなかったのに。
Tears started to roll down my cheeks again.
僕も。僕たちがいじめられてるのは大人の都合で、ミオンとは何も関係ないって知ってるはずなのに。ごめん。
Bro, I'm gonna be real, Satoshi. You really don't have much to apologize for. I mean, yeah, you maybe got a little conspiracy theory in there, right? But, I mean, Shion, as Mion, literally just slammed your little sister's head into a wall twice and then threw textbooks at her and was going to throw a chair at her. Brother, you had every right to be mad. I really don't think he needs to be sorry.
さあ、みーちゃんは次にさとこちゃんに謝る。はい。
I was fine with apologizing to Satoshi-kun, but I didn't want to apologize to her. But the situation wouldn't be settled otherwise, so I reluctantly apologized. Satoko nodded, looking discouraged. After that, Rena let me go. My head ached, so I held it with both hands. Hey, you have brain damage now. What was that? What did I do? I didn't want to use this precious time to fight. Sis had warned me. She told me that I shouldn't talk to Satoshi-kun just like that. What did I come here for? I shouldn't have come here if I knew this was going to happen. Stupid, you're stupid, Shion. I was overcome by emotions because I was so worried about Satoshi-kun. When did things go wrong? Were they wrong from the beginning? I got into a fight with Satoshi-kun. This was totally the opposite of what I wanted. I regretted it. I hated myself for it. I couldn't blame myself enough. My world had been torn apart. I wished the sky would fall and kill me. Of all the ways I expected that school day to go, that would not have even cracked, like, the top 20. Sis sounded both amazed and confused.
ただでさえ渡流しの直前でいろいろと忙しいってのに、シオンは話をさらにややこしくしてくれるな。
ごめん。
Sis tried to say something, but she stopped in the middle. After listening to a few complaints, I started telling her about everything that happened today. Sis had to pretend that the trouble I caused today was her responsibility, which must have been very taxing for her.
もう当分は入れ替わる機会はない。
I think that's more than fair.
シオン、あんた、ちょっとは私の迷惑を考えてほしいな。
Yeah, no kidding.
それは、うん。
Sis had been sympathetic, but maybe I pushed her too far this time. Of course she'd be hesitant to trade spots, considering what I did today. The atmosphere felt awkward, so we were both silent for a while.
仮にさ、もう一回機会があったとして、シオンはどうするの？
That was a reasonable question. I wasn't prepared to answer, though. If I had a chance to go to the school once again and see Satoshi-kun, what would I do? Would I apologize to him about today? I don't think that would work. I might even upset him again, no matter how hard I tried. Okay, here's something that he was saying. It was the Sonozaki family who had been harassing his. It would only be natural for him to hold a grudge against us. But why was he only expressing that now? I've been a Sonozaki to him all along. Satoshi-kun stroked my head even though he knew that I was Mion Sonozaki.
おねえ、率直なところ、サトシ君は園崎家を恨んでるんだよね。
If he genuinely believes they're behind the curse killings, I mean, I wouldn't blame him at all.
だと思う。
It was our family that initiated the persecution of the Hojo family, making them into scapegoats. Well, okay, actually, yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't necessarily even mean the murders, but they were the ones in charge of the persecution, which, even if it was unrelated, if they were unrelated regarding the curse killings, they kind of are the ones that drug their name through the muds and made people hate them. Even after the dam conflict, it wasn't easy for the Hojo family to live in Hinamizawa. Given all of that, it's not surprising that Satoshi-kun hates us, the Sonozaki family who put his family in a devastating
で
situation.
もさ、だったら、なんで今頃になってなの？なんで今頃になってこうなるの？それなら。
If he had rejected me in the first place, I wouldn't have wanted to get close to him. My tears wet my cheeks. I didn't bother to wipe them. It's only natural for him to hold a grudge against the Sonozakis. There's nothing unusual about it. Rather, why has he been treating me like a friend? I knew how stupid this question was.
サトシが大人だったからとしか言えないと思う。
そんなのってひどいよ。
And I can definitely understand why this is bothering her so much. Like, I think it goes without saying, but in her eyes, like, if you hated the Sonozakis in the first place, and we're gonna hold a grudge, why even, like, let her get close in the first place? Like, why not just show it from the start? It is obviously an unfortunate position to be in if you're Shion. He'd been treating me as a friend because he was mature, but now that he'd become stressed mentally and physically, he's decided to reject me? No matter how hard I thought about it, I couldn't find anything to fault him with. If there were somebody to blame, it'd be somebody I'd never accused before.
なんで鬼ババはサトシ君の一家をいじめようって言い出したわけ？ダムに賛成したのはサトシ君の親でしょ？サトシ君が賛成していたわけじゃないでしょ？
Yeah.
なんで一家丸ごといじめようって話になったの？どうしてよ。
Mion couldn't say anything in return. Actually, it wasn't at all hard to guess the reason. The hag didn't give any specific order to harass the Hojo family. She just thought the Hojo family was getting in the way. The people around her noticed what was bothering her and took steps to get rid of it. Though, of course, she must have known how influential her own words were. She didn't just think it. She gave what she must have known would be interpreted as an order. She's the one to blame for initiating the attack on the Hojo family.
前にお姉はフルデの神主さんのことを和を乱すのは大人じゃないみたいなことを言いましたよね。つまりこれもそういうわけ。村中が団結しなきゃならない時に異を唱える北条家は大人じゃなかったと。だから制裁する必要があったと。そういうわけなんでしょ？
Mion couldn't say anything in return, meaning that my accusation was the truth.
なら制裁は北条の親だけで十分じゃない。本家の拷問室にでも連れ込んで指の一本も跳ねてやったらいい。でもそこまでで十分でしょ？サトシ君は関係ない。サトシ君には何の関係もない。サトシ君が何をしたっていうの？サトシ君に何の罪があるっていうの？答えてよ。
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much I can say here.
答えてよ、ミオン。ミオン。
はい。ではよろしくお願いいたしますね。失礼いたします。
Mion suddenly changed her tone and hung up. She must have done that to escape from my questions. I was furious. I started redialing the number. Then I remembered that we decided she'd hang up the phone after using that phrase when she saw the hag coming. Yeah, I was gonna say. That doesn't seem like a I'm dodging the questions kind of thing. It seemed likely to me that Oryu was there. I doubted she actually saw the hag, but it was the rule, so I couldn't call back for a while. I mean, I guess, yeah, okay. She could be using that predetermined phrase to dodge. That makes sense, but I went to the bathroom to wash my face and cool down. I turned the faucet. The water felt lukewarm. It didn't help me cool down at all. Disgusted by my own childishness, I just wanted to fill my void. I didn't care about him, considering that Satoshi-kun was very generous, but I don't know if I can forgive Satoko. That's a different story. Yeah, so that's some of her notes from the future. How far in the future is, yet to be seen. I was looking up at the ceilings with my arms and legs spread out. It's not that I wasn't getting hungry. I didn't live with my parents. I didn't live in the school dorm. That meant I had to cook something myself when I wanted to eat. I knew that, but I still didn't feel like getting up. It had been several days since I began this empty life. It must be tomorrow. The Watanagashi festival, I mean. I heard the doorbell ringing. Actually, I'm kind of wondering who that's going to be. I ignored it at first, but it rung persistently. Like, I could see it being any of, like, oh my goodness. I forgot the butler's name. But the butler, Mion. The crazy pick is certainly one of Satoshi or Rena. I ignored it at first, but it rung persistently. I started hearing knocking, alongside Kasai's rude voice. There it is, it's Kasai.
Shion-san, いらっしゃるなら開けてください。弁当を買ってきました。
I didn't ask him to. He must have known that I hadn't eaten enough and that I'd been feeling down lately.
やはり食事を取られていませんでしたか。
別にお腹が空いてるわけじゃないし。
But when Kasai put the food on the table, my stomach reacted in a very primitive way by making some noise.
ほら、お腹が鳴っている。食べた方がいいですよ。
I was hungry, but had no appetite. I mean, I did have an appetite, but didn't have the energy to eat. Yet I'd feel bad wasting the food Kasai had bought. I picked up my chopsticks just to humor him.
最近はばあさんがマークしてるんじゃなかったの？私のとこなんかに来て大丈夫なわけ？
おりょうさんは綿流しの打ち合わせなどでお忙しく、シオンさんのことまでは最近は頭が回らないようでしたので、クリームコロッケは好物ではありませんでしたか？
うん。美味しいです。ありがとう。
While I nibbled on the food, Kasai read through the magazines I'd bought.
葛西は、うん。
I never talked to Kasai about something like this before. Since I've always believed myself superior to him psychologically, I hesitated to show my weakness to him. That's kind of an insane statement to make.
そういう悩みも年頃にしておくのは悪いもんじゃありませんよ。
We're a little bit narcissistic.
葛西、あんた全部知ってる？
ミオンさんから少々力になってほしいと頼まれました。
お姉か。
心配しておられましたよ。
Yeah.
ミオンさん。
I mean, like, that was like a genuine crash out. Like, I literally did not care. You were so angry, did not care the consequences, right? Like, of your actions. Yeah, that's the exact situation. You gotta, like, be like, are you okay? Like, we need to, like, look out for you right now. Without responding, I threw the last croquette in my mouth.
北条聡君の近況を知りたがっていると思いまして、少し情報を集めてきましたが、余計なお世話でしたか？
余計なお世話です。でも、せっかく集めてきた葛西の顔を立てるために、まあ一応聞いておきます。
Yeah, acting like you didn't want to hear this. Kasai chuckled, but stopped quickly as if thinking it rude.
北条哲平が家を出たらしいです。沖宮に実婚の関係の女性がいまして、そこへ転げ込んだようです。
哲平？誰？ああ、サトシ君のおじか。
家には、叔母の北条玉江と北条聡、聡子の3人となりました。
Did she already have that name? What was that? Tamai? Is that how they said that? I think that was Tamai. So I'm going to say Tamai. I don't know if that was correct. I'm not correct, forgive me.
玉江は哲平が別の女性のところへ逃げたのだと気づき、大層機嫌を悪くしたらしいですね。
ってことはあれだ。ますます叔母の里子いびりが加速して、サトシ君もそれのとばっちりで、ますますに苦労してるってことか。
Yeah. Although I can't really say I blame her for being in a foul mood. Obviously she's taking things way too far, but I can't blame her for being a little upset given the situation.
サトシ君の方はわかりませんが、聡子さんの方は近所でも噂になるくらい、決して良くはない状況です。
If Satoko looks miserable, I mean Satoshi-kun must be going through equally miserable torture.
その叔母って、なんとかならないの？憎き北条家の片割れなわけだから、その崎本家で制裁しちゃおうって話にはなってないの？
She's also one of the remaining Hojos, after all. The uncle is gone, so why not the aunt?
園崎本家としては、北条夫妻の事故死で一応のけじめがついたので、北条関連では一切手を出すなと言命が出ています。夫妻の事故死を疑う警察が、北条家近辺を未だマークしているという噂がありますので。
To be fair, they're actually kind of correct about that.
事故死はお社様のたたりってことになってるからね。神罰が下ったんなら、それ以上は人間が下すまでもないってこと。
Kasai put on a faint smile. Come to think of it, it is hard not to suspect the involvement of the Sonozaki family in all the incidents said to be Oyashiro-sama's curse. Somebody strives to get rid of the hag's concerns on the day of the Watanagashi festival. Furthermore, the Watanagashi festival is going to be held tomorrow. Will the curse strike again this year? If so, who will be the victim? Now that I think about it, there were cases of multiple victims in the past. The first and third year it was just one, but the second year the victims were a couple. So it wouldn't be too strange if 2 people fell victim this year. It seems like a good time. It'd be best for Satoko and her aunt to be the victims. So, wow! Wow, I was about to glance over that. That's insane! Satoshi-kun will be freed from every source of his worries all at once. Dude, you... That's insane. Oh my god. I was really about to just brush over that, like without really picking up on the fact that I just said Satoko there. Goodness. Goodness. What? Okay. Okay. We're gonna... That's an insane statement to make. Look, I obviously get she does not exactly care for Satoko, but just saying she should die to the curse is insane. Right? Like, I don't know. Don't you think Satoko would be a lot more fine? Like, regarding, like, Satoshi, like, wouldn't be as much of a burden if she wasn't being abused? I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Right? I feel like you should have still just said Tepe. Right? It would have saved Keiichi some trouble next year, for sure. But, wow. Also, shouldn't, one of the Sonozaki should be getting the call tonight. And whichever Sonozaki gets that call will basically confirm, which, Sonozaki got the call in the next chapter. Or not the next chapter, in chapter 3 as well. Which could be important. Satoshi-kun will be freed from every source of his worries all at once.
葛西、今年のお社様のたたりの犠牲者は誰かってもう決まってる。決めるのはばあさん？ならお姉は明日の犠牲者をもう知ってるってことになるな。どうなの葛西？何か聞かされてる？
シオンさん、私はその件については一切聞かされていません。
I don't know if I believe that.
まあそりゃそうか。火災ごときの耳に本家の最高機密が入るわけもないか。
そういうことです。少なくとも私の関係する界隈ではそういう話は降りてきていません。
So the question still remains. Obviously Shion thinks it's the Sonozakis, but is it?
ですが、ご存知の通り、本家は裏の世界の方々に通じます。
I definitely don't think it's impossible. Despite me seeming convinced that it was not, right? But there's always the chance the Sonozakis are at least plugged in, right? And deciding, even if my explanation with Takano and some kind of parasite is true, which actually, now that I think about it, it would, if they were to say, here, Takano, have a little parasite real quick, it would kind of make sense. But, right, like, even if my explanation with Takano and the potential parasite being the curse and whatnot, even if all of that's true, it could be, like, under orders of the Sonozaki family, and I never really considered that.
私にはその一部を垣間見ることも叶いません。
Something really worth considering that I didn't put as much weight into as I maybe should have. Maybe I could try asking Sis about it, but she won't talk. She's strict about keeping promises, unlike me. If the hag told her to keep a secret, she'd take it to her grave.
今年の綿流しでおばと里子が消えちまえばいいのにな。葛西、私は憂慮したよ。気を利かせてくれると嬉しいんですけど。
Yeah.
シオンさん、ご冗談を。
わーってるって言ってみただけだって。
God, that's a messed up joke. Her hatred of Satoko is just insane. I took a glimpse at Kasai. It didn't look like he was actually going to do something to make my wish come true. I wasn't able to go to the villages myself, so I definitely wasn't going to the festival. I didn't care about that. Even so, I was interested in who was going to end up as the victim of the curse. If I just kept lying on this couch playing hooky, somebody would fall victim in several hours. I had no clue why it had to happen every year, but I was certain that the hag was behind it. All the enemies from the dam conflict had been punished. Only the Hojo couple was left, since most of the other enemies had already gone. The cicadas were crying loudly outside. It made me feel hot. Why was it this hot and humid in June? If Oyashiro-sama was actually punishing people, I'd pray for one thing. I'd pray the evil aunt would be punished, and I'd offer up Satoko as a sacrifice. Ha! It's hot. We have to do the flashbang? When I woke up, Kasa had already gone. Looks like he cleaned the table in the surrounding room. He put my dirty laundry into the hamper in front of the washing machine, too. Being a girl of a sensitive age, I didn't want a man to clean my room. Well, I'd rather thank him than badmouth him. I looked at the clock. It was late afternoon. I had to go grocery shopping. There was nothing left in the fridge. I'd be having just rice for dinner if I didn't go. At that moment, the phone rang. It must be Kasai, I thought. Oh, is this going to be the call? Please let this be the call, because that might justify my theories regarding Shion. Please, please. Or at least Mion giving this information. I did hope it was him. He could have brought more food, so then I wouldn't have to go shopping. Well, I was just being lazy. I didn't feel like going out at all. But it wasn't Kasai on the phone.
おねえ、そこ、どこ？
Dang.
本家じゃない？
At least relay the information,
あ、
please.
うん。公衆電話からかけてる。だから手短に話すよ。サトシから電話が来たんだよ。
Oh. Okay. That theory might be a bust. I mean, she's gonna get the information, so, like, not a complete bust, but the person on the phone who lost it said, I received a call like this last year, right? Like, I don't...
サトシ君がお姉に？
多分、私にじゃないと思う。シオンにだと思う。サトシは、先日の教室での件を謝りたがってるみたいだった。だから、その電話はシオンが受けた方がいいと思って。
Wait, are we rerouting this?
サトシの電話は、今ちょっと忙しいからすぐかけ直すって言って切ってあるの。
There's still a chance.
だからシオンは、今から私が言う電話番号に電話してあげて。
It's not over. Hold on.
うん、わかった。
Hold on. I might be onto something. I was stunned for a second, but then recovered and wrote down the number on the back of a magazine.
ありがとう。すぐに電話します。
そうしてあげて。サトシは最近、すごく追い詰められてるの。私の声はもう届かないみたいだけど、シオンの声なら、ひょっとすると届くかもしれないって。
You can tell the
何の
difference?
根拠もなく思ってる。
She could have pretended to be me and handled his call. But she passed it over to me.
ありがとう、ミオン。
じゃあね、シオン。
Yeah, Mion could have pretended to be Shion pretending to be Mion. Before she hung up, I put the handset down. And after a second, I dialed the number in a flash. I heard the dial tone 3 times, 4 times, and there he was.
北条です。
He sounded like an adult. His voice sounded a bit tired, too, but it definitely was the voice I loved. I got scared. I was scared that it might become sulky again if I mentioned my name. Couldn't open my mouth for a while.
サトシ君ですよね。
さっきはごめん。もう時間は大丈夫なの？
That was the Satoshi-kun I knew. He didn't sound cold like the other day.
うん、全然平気です。
After that, he went silent. I felt the urge to start a conversation. It wasn't fair. He was the one who called in the first place. Then, he finally spoke.
先日はごめん。
I really still don't think you should be the one apologizing here, but, you know, that's just me.
私こそごめんなさいです。
ミオンは謝らなくていいよ。
What? I get you're trying to be the bigger man here, but she absolutely needs to apologize. She gave Satoko a beatdown.
僕がどうかしてた。
If this were a face-to-face conversation, he would be stroking my head. It was sad just talking to him over the phone.
僕たちをここまで追い込んだ奴らを絶対に許しはしない。
Also, I'm gonna be honest. Her being like, this is the old Satoshi I know. Bro, I don't know. Listening, he sounds distraught in a way. I mean, I think that's because I know what this call is gonna end up being, you know? But, like, there's no way.
そいつらはミオンのとても近くにいるのかもしれないけれど、でも決してミオンじゃなかったんだ。だから僕は君にだけは謝ろうと思って。
うん、気にしないで。私だってサトシ君のことをよく理解しようともせず無神経だった。
We apologized to each other a few times.
それよりサトシ君大丈夫？いろいろと大変なのにサトコの誕生日プレゼントのためにアルバイトまでしてだいぶ追い詰められてるんじゃない？
もうバイトはやめたよ。
目標額のお金はなんとか貯められたみたいだからね。
そうなんだ。ならもう体を無理させなくていいんですね。本当によかった。
Satoshi-kun tried to say something, but he dropped it instead.
僕より聡子の方が辛い。
聡子、大変なことになっていますね。大丈夫なんですか？
あれが大丈夫なように見えるのかよ。
He suddenly sounded upset. I'd messed up.
ごめん。
Yeah,
ごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
I was so stupid. I had ruined this miraculous conversation with him. Satoshi-kun didn't respond to my apology, so I stopped apologizing.
あんなに誰が見てもわかるくらいに傷ついてボロボロで
Yeah?
みんな見捨てた。
Yeah, and Shion made it worse.
どこ
見捨てたつもりなんて。
What? 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 I did you did worse than abandon her. I tried to calm him down. I hated what I just said because of how hollow it sounded. I had no idea what to say next. I felt guilty. Satoshi-kun was desperate to protect Satoko from their evil aunt. I'd wished that Satoko would die tomorrow because of the curse. But I'd wished that. I was trampling on his desperate hope.
聡子はもう擦り切れる直前なんだ。だから
He cut himself off in the middle and went quiet for a moment. He must have been choosing his words carefully. Then he finally spoke. His words sounded hollow.
だからせめて一夜くらい遊ばせてやりたいんだ。
It's the call. It's the exact call I thought it was. That might be good for my theories.
遊ばせるって。
ほら明日は綿流しのお祭りじゃないか。聡子をお祭りに連れ出してやってほしいんだ。
それは構わないけど、どうして？
聡子もいろいろと参ってる。たとえ一夜でもおばさんのいないところで羽を伸ばせたならきっと喜ぶと思うんだ。
Yeah, but why her, of course, is the next question.
だからどうして？
This is like, dude, I'm gonna have to compare this. Like, this is like exactly how it went.
どうしてって。
It's not that I didn't understand why he wanted her taken to the festival. What I didn't understand is why he was asking me to do that. Was there any reason he couldn't take her there himself? I had a hunch that he might disappear, so I kept asking.
どうしてって。
どうしてサトシ君が自分で連れて行ってあげないの？
He fell silent. Satoshi-kun isn't good at lying or keeping secrets. It was clear that he wanted to hide something.
用事だよ。
The job that you quit?
僕明日はちょっとバイトの関係で用事があってどうしても祭りには行けないんだ。
He was lying, but he was also stubborn. He wouldn't admit it if I accused him.
ねえミオン、明日の夜だけ聡子を頼めないかな。
Is he gonna die/disappear without ever having even known Shion was a different person? Oh my. I wouldn't want to look after Satoko, even at Satoshi-kun's request. I'm also glad that he's relying on me.
あれだけの暴言をぶつけてそれを謝るついでにこんなことを頼むなんて
Yeah, a little bit.
悪いことだとは思ってるけどミオンだけが頼りなんだ。
I didn't know what to say. I did know, though, that I wasn't going to turn down his request.
わかった。明日の晩だけだよ。
できたら明日の晩だけじゃなく
Yeah, he knows he's gonna
これ
disappear.
からもずっとがいいな。
何言ってるんですか？そんなの嫌です。明日だけですからね。
He sounded as if he were going to disappear tomorrow. I didn't like the sound of that, so I intentionally sounded sulky. We talked about trivial stuff for just a little while. When the conversation was almost over, Satoshi-kun asked something else.
ねえミオン、こんなことを話すときっと精神的に病んでるって思われるんで本当は嫌なんだけど。
どうしたんですか？
ミオンは信じないよね。
The curse, of course.
何をですか？
お社様のたたり。
サトシ君、何の話ですか？
お社様は確かほら村を捨てて逃げ出そうとするとたたるでしょ。
Right. That's the rule. Every kid in the village knows that.
どうしたんです？突然。村を捨てて逃げようとでもしてるんですか？
I was kidding. I wanted him to deny it.
もうそんな気はないんだ。もう。
He admitted that he had thought of it. I guess Rena told me that much.
いいじゃないですか。もうそんな気がないのなら。
でもまだ許してもらえないんだ。
Satoshi-kun tried to say something but hesitated. He was breathing so heavily. Was he sick? No, he's going insane.
サトシ具合悪いの？
No, he's going insane.
ごめん。そういうわけじゃないんだ。
サトシ君は少し頑張りすぎたから少し休んだ方がいいです。
Yeah, rest up for your murder day, buddy. Gotta lock in. He sounded distinctly more sickly from when this conversation had started. He breathed heavily when punctuating his words. Satoshi-kun repeated his question.
ミオン、最初の質問を。ミオンはお社様のたたりって存在すると思うかい？
Oh, is she gonna be honest? That's the question. What did he want me to say? Could I make him feel relieved with my answer? How should I respond? The answer was simple.
たたりなんてあるわけないじゃないですか。
I didn't know what was bothering him, but I wanted to make him feel better by laughing his worries away. But Satoshi-kun instead fell silent. Would my answer make him happy? Or maybe sad? I couldn't tell. One thing was certain. I didn't make him feel any better.
変なことを聞いてごめん。
ごめん。
I felt like I let him down, so I apologized in a rush.
たたりだろうと、この村の何者かの陰謀だろうと、僕は絶対に消えない。消されない。
About that, buddy, I have really... You're gonna need to sit down when you hear this, but I've got really bad news for you.
消えないよ、サトシ君は。
消えないよ、サトコに。あのぬいぐるみを買ってやるまではね。もうすぐお給料がもらえることになってる。その日までは絶対に消えない。
He chuckled. I knew he was trying to relieve me, but it worked the opposite way. He sounded as though he didn't care what happened after he'd bought the teddy bear.
あ、おばさんが帰ってきたからもう切るよ。
うん。
ミオン。
何？
Even though he wanted to hang up the phone because of his aunt coming back, Satoshi-kun took a breath to tell me something important.
サトコのこと頼むからね。
Oh man. I should have said yes right away. But I still couldn't forgive Satoko, so I just kept quiet.
変なこと頼んで、じゃあ。
He was obviously disappointed. What had I done? I wanted to apologize. I wished I could, but it was too late. The dial tone left no doubt. Now that was depressing. Yeah. Oh, what an episode or chapter. What in the world just happened? The start, like, this was two just insane sections with a brief little intermission of not crazy in the middle. Let's read this tip before we talk too much, but let's just say I'm feeling pretty good right now. You New Tips, A Torn Diary. Somebody whispered to me from behind. They told me that I was going to be the victim of the curse this year, so I'm going to disappear soon. There'll be nobody left to take care of Satoko. Somebody whispered to me from behind. They told me that I don't have much time, but I won't stay as myself for much longer. So I had to make the best of the days I had left. What could I leave for Satoko? She wanted that huge teddy bear. She wanted a peaceful life in which nobody would bully her. I whispered to the person at my back, "Bestow your violent nature and formidable strength upon me. I want your peaceful mind filled with hatred." Okay. So he's hearing whispers. He's saying he doesn't have much time and he's not going to be himself for much longer. Make the best of the days he had left. And he was wondering what he could leave for Satoko, the huge teddy bear, and a peaceful life. So, okay, so here's the thing. This actually kind of changes his motives a little bit. I don't know how much it ultimately changes in the grand scheme of things, but I think the thing is he knew he was going to disappear and, like, die, right? He knew that was coming, right? And so because of that, he's like, well, before I go out, might as well kill someone. You know? That might help Satoko live a peaceful life. And I might as well get her a huge gift to remember me by. Right? And then he said he whispered back, "Bestow your violent nature on me," right? I'm assuming this is a whisper coming back, "I want your peaceful mind filled with hatred." Oh, wait, it literally says, nope, that's the first line here. Although it kind of works, actually. I almost wonder if that was intentional. This music is creepy. They've really upped the creepiness in this, in Chapter 5. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I mean, this kind of changes his motives a little bit, right? It wasn't just he'd had enough of the aunt and snapped and then disappeared later as a result. I mean, we kind of already understood that he was cursed, right? Like, well before this, right? But it's kind of making it clear that this curse is really what's having this effect and what made him be filled with such hatred. Now I gotta wonder. I really need to think a little more on the connection between Chapter 3 Keiichi and Satoshi here, right? But at the same time, Keiichi never had that feeling that he was going to vanish soon, right? He didn't, like, I don't know, like, he didn't feel paranoid so much as he just hated Teppei, right? Like, and wanted to carve out that peaceful life that he had before with Satoko. He wanted to take it back, right? He wasn't like, "I'm going soon anyways, I might as well leave an impact," right? Which is what it sounds like Satoshi felt. It's kind of interesting. I don't actually know how much it changes in the grand scheme of things, at least right now, but like I said, it's interesting. So let's talk about this chapter. First of all, that first part was actually insanity with Shion at the school. It's just insane to me that I guess apparently everyone got over this, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe Satoko held a grudge. Maybe Rika held a grudge on Mion for this, right? Like, but it's not something that's literally ever come up before. Oh yeah, we forgot to mention that time that Mion literally beat Satoko, right? Slammed her head into a wall twice, threw textbooks at her, and tried to hit her with a chair. Like, what? How is that just something we've brushed over? I know we're talking about Hinamizawa, but you see something like that, and you gotta wonder how much has been brushed over, right? I know we were always talking about Hinamizawa, so you always had to wonder how much is being brushed over, but seeing an incident like that, right? And these people are just friends, right? Like, what? Oh, why did I not even make this connection last episode? It's even more obvious now. Regarding Chapter 2, the most random people it felt like that had been killed by the Sonozaki running around were Rika and Satoko. And we know Shion hates Satoko. Right? We know that. right? I really want to actually go back at some point and see that chapter 2 rant. I actually want to do that. Maybe I'll throw that in as like a little bonus at the end of the episode or something. Like every now and then if I like rewatch something and actually make an interesting revelation, maybe I'll throw that in as a bonus. Right? Anyways, though. Wow. Yeah, so... I mean, but then also Rika, like, given the way Rika, like, stood up for Satoko, you gotta wonder if she held a grudge against Rika, too. Right? Or if Rika was the coincidence and was like, I guess I gotta murder Satoko, I guess. Well, actually, the way it sounded, it almost sounded like she wanted to kill Satoko and Rika got caught up in it. Now that I think about it. Because the way she ranted, it was like, everyone around Satoko is doomed, right? Like she like curses those around her, so I wonder if that was her goal and she couldn't do it without killing Rika, and that's why she was like maybe like ranting like that. That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, that first scene, like I said, kind of insane. It makes you wonder how much we just don't know about, right? Even between the characters that we know, right? Like maybe past tensions that just have never come up again. I don't know. But the important part was the phone call. Look, I had a lot of Chapter 3 theories hinging on the fact that it was Shion that received this phone call and not Mion, right? Because like I said, in my eyes right now, if you didn't watch the Chapter 3 theory video, I'll give you the quick little rundown. In my eyes, it was actually Shion that answered Keiichi's call in Chapter 3. Why do I think this? In Chapter 3, if we look at the call, and maybe I'll also include this as a little bonus in this episode too, but I do actually go through the call in the theory video, if you want to check that out. But anyways, during this call, they never directly confirm that it's Mion that's being called. They just say it's Sonozaki, right? But then also, they make direct reference to this call last year, and how they felt that they abandoned Satoko, and how they thought it was Satoshi calling them again, right? And I'm like, it makes so much more sense for that to be Shion, right? But then my theory afterward was, I think it was a cover-up that, like, that Keiichi got through, like, or that Keiichi got away with Teppei, right? I think it was a cover-up, and honestly, it could have just been Shion. It might have been Shion shared this with Mion, right, and the Sonozakis did it. But I think Shion knew, and that's actually my best theory as to how he survived the Great Disaster. I think it was related to Shion, which could explain why. I think it said Kasai died, right? I think Kasai died in the disaster. Shion didn't, but she later died in the hospital. Maybe, like, you know, she kind of died as a result. Like, she kept Keiichi safe and kind of died as a result a bit later. Maybe at the same time as Keiichi, she might have also gone crazy, like Keiichi ultimately did, right? I do still wonder who took them out there at the end, but like I said, a lot of these theories, though, they hinged on the fact that Shion knew, right, what was going on with Keiichi in Chapter 3. And it was possible that Shion just told Mion, I suppose. But that didn't make a ton of sense to me, right? Because if that was the case, right, I don't know. Like, don't you think, like, Mion would have, like, gotten away? Right? Like, I don't know. I almost wonder, and I'm starting to wonder this even more now. I think my theory in the video was it was the villain who did the disaster, and I think I might have mentioned the idea of Shion. If I didn't, that is a shame, because I had actually strongly considered this. But honestly, seeing Shion now, dude, it feels more likely, right? And maybe not more likely than the villain, but more likely than it felt before, right? Like, I feel like there's a chance it was Shion who did the disaster, which is how she survived, which is how Keiichi survived, right? Maybe she felt like, once again, another person was going to fall victim to Satoko, right? And you have Keiichi, because she seemed to see a lot of Satoshi in Keiichi. Maybe she felt like Keiichi was the only one trying to do anything, right? I don't know why she would have that much forgiveness for Satoko specific, or like empathy, I guess is the word, but like I don't know, maybe she felt like they saw what Satoshi sacrificed himself for, and still nobody did anything, right? And Keiichi came out and basically decided to be Satoshi 2.0, and she was like, you know what? I'm wiping this town. I'm saving Keiichi. We're done. We're done here. Like, are we seriously repeating this? Right? Maybe that happened. Look, like I said, I still don't know if that's more likely in my eyes than the villain did it. But I do really wonder the possibility. Well, actually, the reason I decided that doesn't make sense is because it happened again later, after Shion was supposedly dead. So unless that was a crazy cover-up, which is possible, it's very possible. I guess that was the reason I pivoted away from that theory, actually, now that I think about it. So I still think villain, but I almost wonder if it was somehow, I still almost wonder if it was Shion somehow. Anyways, let's get into this next big day, right? I mean, this is going to be a big one. Watanagashi? Like, oh, man. Oh, this is going to be a big day. Big, big day. Alright, so let's go ahead and come here, and let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so we're typing this like in the future, it seems like. The day of the Watanagashi Festival. June 20th, 1982, 1:40 p.m. What was I doing today? Banger music. Nothing in particular. Nothing at all. I just wanted to play hooky. I woke up in the afternoon. I ate instant food for lunch while watching boring TV programs. I had a light headache, so I lay down on the sofa. I wouldn't wake up again if I went to sleep. Whatever. I decided to sleep. I'd already told Sis that Satoshi-kun had asked her to look after Satoko. I didn't have to do anything myself. I fell asleep, though my head was aching a little bit. That would be all I'd have to deal with. Unless... June 20th, 1982, 5:02 p.m. The aunt believed that all the villagers frowned upon her because her brother-in-law and his wife were pro-dam activists. She surely experienced some fallout during the time of the dispute. But people had stopped looking coldly upon her, even though she assumed otherwise. She was paranoid, believing that all the villagers hated her, and so she decided to hate them back. Her attitude, of course, begot hatred from the villagers, and the situation became exactly the way she thought it was from the start. Self-fulfilling prophecy. Nice. What came first? Their poor relationships with the neighbors, or her husband's affair? She didn't know herself. Her husband claimed that he got a lover because he was fed up with her attitude. She, in turn, claimed that their relationship with the neighbors went sour because her husband had damaged their reputation. Only Satoshi was aware that both happened at almost the same time. The quarrels had become a daily routine now. When the husband came home late, the wife would shout at him at the entrance. Satoshi wondered why they didn't get a divorce, their marriage being as rotten as it was. But he secretly knew the reason for that, too. It was the fortune his parents had left. His aunt had hidden their bank book in a stamp and never allowed her husband access to them. So, her husband would search the house for them. She'd find out he stole some money from her purse. This would cause yet another fight. Okay, so she just took over the money. Satoshi had never been aware that his parents had that much money when they were alive. After their death, however, one of his relatives told him. He was informed that his parents had left a large sum of money in some bank account. Satoshi couldn't understand why they had that kind of money, because his family had been, as far as he knew, poor. Because of the dam project, his parents probably got the money in return for their cooperation with the government. They had strived to get more villagers on their side, provided information to them and whatnot. The money was probably compensation for their efforts. His aunt and uncle never had any intentions to adopt them until they heard about the money. After someone from some financial institution revealed its existence, they appeared to adopt Satoko and Satoshi. Why did that sentence cook me so hard? The couple would fight every day. Eventually, Satoshi's uncle started spending more time at his mistress's home. He realized that he had no reason to return to his own home, because he'd just end up in a fight with his wife if he did. When he stopped coming home, Satoshi felt relieved. Neither their uncle nor their aunt treated the two siblings very well. Satoshi's aunt wouldn't have to vent her frustration upon them. The reason the couple fought was their corrupted relationship, so if they separated there wouldn't be any more fights. Wrong. Satoshi had thought that at first. But even after they separated, his aunt still had a short temper. Another woman had stolen her husband. The villagers must have been talking behind her back. It was mortifyingly embarrassing. Since she lost an opponent to fight, Satoshi's aunt directed her hatred towards the siblings. Satoshi had been observing her. He learned when she would get upset and how to avoid her attention. He managed to get by without upsetting her by turning a keen eye to her behavior and avoiding conflicts. Satoko, though. But Satoko couldn't do that. She hated her aunt and didn't even try to hide it. Satoshi told her to behave in their aunt's presence, but her eyes were always filled with hatred. Satoshi strived to reduce the conflict between them as much as possible. He stepped in to mend the relationship. It was a heavy burden for him, though, because he was still just a boy. He bore so much. He covered for his little sister by lying and maneuvering. He tried to maintain a tangible sense of peace, but couldn't do that forever. The relationship between Satoko and her aunt had already spiraled out of control. Satoshi found something in the trash. Probably wasn't a legitimate place for trash disposal. If it was, sanitation workers would come and pick it up. He passed by this street all the time, so he noticed when there were new things dumped there. He found a plain-looking desk, of the kind likely to be seen in offices. Somebody must have dumped it within the past few days. His aunt liked to bring usable trash back home. She'd had Satoshi help bring a chest home just a few days ago. He told her about the desk, she'd want it. His aunt hated to find bugs and garbage in the drawers, so she'd always open them to check before carrying the thing home. Satoshi opened all the drawers, all of which were empty. After that, he turned around and walked for about 5 steps. He was standing in a knee-high bush. There, he laid something he'd been carrying all the time, until today, the bat. It'd be very hard to find unless you specifically knew it was there to begin with. Looking satisfied, Satoshi looked around for some landmark to remember the place by. Oh man, that was definitely him dropping the bat off. June 20th, 1982, 5:51 p.m.
へい親父、今年も来たね。また根こそぎかっさらってくからか
その先のお嬢ちゃんは今年も元気がいいな。あ、そっちの子は新顔かい？
この子はね、竜宮レナ。こう見えてても結構やるよ。
Yeah, no kidding. Do not underestimate Rena under any circumstances.
そんなことないよ。
Incorrect.
よろしくお願いしますね。
おう、こっちこそよろしくな。今年もいろいろ景品を持ってきたんだぜ。
Guessing there's gonna be Satoko
もちろん真剣勝負だ。
and or Rika.
根こそぎ持ってけるもんなら持ってけってんだ。
レナは可愛いものには目がないのですよ。
There's Rika.
あのぬいぐるみとそっちのぬいぐるみはレナの好みだね。
Stuffed animal. Is it a stuffed bear by any chance? Perhaps a giant one.
かわいいね。ほもち帰り。
ダメだよ。まだ準備中だよ。おい。
レナ、ダメ。まだ準備中だってさ。ちゃんと回転したら根こそぎさらってやりな。
もうダメだよ。レナのものなんだよ。お持ち帰り。
Rena lost her marbles over the stuffed animal. Everybody laughed. Everybody except Satoko. She was standing by herself, some distance from the crowd. Her eyes looked dull.
なんなんですの、リカ。
Rika walked up to Satoko, smiling ear to ear in an effort to cheer her up.
今日は何も考えなくていいのですよ。いっぱい楽しく過ごしましょうなのです。
Yeah, I mean, it's a little more difficult than just that, but Satoko looked down. Even though she got to have fun today, her circumstances at home wouldn't change. Boy, will they. Will they ever.
さとこ、意地悪なおばさんは、今日はお祭りには来ませんですよ。そんなことは分かってますわ。なら、いっぱい笑って、いっぱい楽しくなるのですよ。
Yeah, at least enjoy the time that she's not there.
みぱー。みぱー。みぱー。
Just gonna keep saying it till she gets the memo.
あいにくですけど、そういう気分になれませんの。申し訳ございませんけど、放っておいてくださいませ。
どうして聡子は笑いませんですか？
Satoko sulkily glimpsed at Rika. She gave her a look, as though she wanted to say that Rika should know the reason. Even if she could have fun today, nothing would change between her and her evil aunt. No matter how fun the festival was, once she went home, her aunt would be there. Debatable. The aunt would find something wrong with Satoko, get mad, and shout at her so loudly that the neighbors would hear. How can she have fun, even just for today, while knowing all that? Satoko didn't say that out loud, but her eyes betrayed her emotions to Rika.
では聡子の辛いのが今日でおしまいになるなら、聡子は笑ってくれますですか？
Rika knows. I think Rika probably literally knows, to be clear. If I think she's going through time loops, which I do, then she has played these games before, you know? This isn't where things deviate, you know, as far as we know. We've only ever seen them deviate in what seems like, 1983? Satoko gasped. She thought that Rika might do something to help. But soon after, she realized that Rika was just trying to comfort her. No, well, I mean, I guess a little bit. Could her suffering end today? Because of Rika? How? Satoko knew that there was really nothing Rika could do. And so, after just one moment of freedom, Satoko fell into depression again.
リカ、くだらない気休めは聞きたくないですわ。
聡子、
Rika's voice was clearer than Satoko had ever heard before.
もう決まっていることなのです。
June 20th, 1982, 8:11 p.m. I mean, who is seeing this? Who is seeing all of these? I don't actually know. Like, I feel like it can't, like, surely this isn't like one individual seeing all of these, right? The only individual who could have known, like, I don't know. Actually, I take it back. There's, like, no one, like, besides maybe Shion is stalking them, you know? Satoshi snuck out the window after supper. He'd heard the distant ruckus of the festival. The festival would end at 9 p.m. After the Watanagashi ceremony, there was going to be a raffle drawing. So, there were two types of people in Hinamizawa. The people who would go home for dinner, and the ones who would stay until the raffle was over. Either relaxing at home or still at the festival. There were only those two patterns. On top of that, there weren't many neighbors in the vicinity of Satoshi's house. As a result, he found nobody on the streets. On that night, the small village seemed especially desolate. Satoshi knew it was going to be like this, but he would keep worrying until he saw it for himself. He was barefooted, but started running without hesitation. For the bat. He felt as though he'd become a wild animal, running on his bare feet. He got the impression that he could run faster than usual. Not only his running ability, his vision, his hearing, and his sense of smell. All his senses were keener, including his sixth sense. He could almost sense the presence of people in the distance, if only when crouching like an animal. It felt strange, as though he had stepped into another world. He'd been feeling tense and anxious until today, battling with his own fear. I mean, this is exactly what Keiichi went through. But now he felt as though he had metamorphosed into a different person. June 20th, 1982, 8:37 p.m.
それではお楽しみ抽選会の説明をこれより始めますので、どうぞ皆さん、櫓の周りにお集まりくださいな。
The festival had reached its climax. The raffle was going to start. Both the women who were dancing and those who were waiting for the raffle gathered around the altar. This is the first time they'd held a raffle. The planning committee decided to hold one from this year onward to attract more people to the festival. I don't remember this being a thing in 1 through 3. So unless this was the last year they did it, I guess it's just something we never saw. At first, the prizes were things the committee members had donated, but Oryu, not appreciating how pathetic they looked, had them thrown away. Oryu took the initiative and bought a brand new TV, a washing machine, a cooling fan, and other such things for the raffle. Dang, money bags! The committee wanted to keep it small initially, but it turned out big thanks to her. Ori was upset because the committee members weren't enthusiastic enough, in her opinion. Some of the members thought it would be very difficult to prepare prizes of equal value the following year, so this might be the very first and last raffle. Well, yeah, that does sound about right.
おりょうさんのおかげで簡単なすんばらしい商品になったね。だいぶかかったんじゃないの？運営費で立て替えするよ。
すったらうな程度で立て替えなんてアホらしい。銭金の問題じゃないんね。たく。
まあまあそう言わないで。おりょうさんのおかげでできた抽選会なんだから。
こんな私一人でどうにかすりゃええんちゅうわけとちゃいなや。
True.
はほくさ。
It's not like she organized the thing. The mayor, Kimiyoshi, was having a tough time pacifying Oryu. All of a sudden, one of the committee members burst into the tent in a rush. He looked upset, so Kimiyoshi assumed that somebody probably got hurt in an accident.
どうしたの牧野さん。そんなに息を弾ませたら心臓が破れちゃうよ。
Kimiyoshi made a joke to calm him down. Makino, however, still looked tense. He whispered something to Kimiyoshi. Even without hearing the exchange between Makino and Kimiyoshi, it was plain as day there was bad news.
おりょうさん、悪い話なんだけどいいかい？
Kimiyoshi, accompanied by Makino, moved to Oryu's side and spoke in a very serious tone.
おりょうさん、悪い話なんだけど
Are they saying Oreo?
おりょうさん、悪い話なんだけどいいかい？
I might be saying her name wrong, to be honest, but I've been saying it for so long at this point that unless someone says I'm saying it wrong, I'm going to keep saying it the same way. Kimiyoshi whispered to her the exact same words Makino told him.
いやいや、参ったよな。
参るも参らもなんね。3度あっちゃんは4度あるっちゅうこっちゃな。
So, I guess let's look at the time. 8:37. It was 8:11 that he got the bat, so what, like 26 minutes? I could see it.
おりょうさん、そりゃ笑えないや。
面白い話でもなんでもないや。面倒が増えただけっちゃね。
警察が今身元を調べてるらしい。どうも相当顔面をやられてるらしくて、身元の特定が難しそうなんだと。
顔がわからんでもおおよその想像はつくっちゃな。
え？心当たりがあるのかい？
Oryu glared at Kimiyoshi, then started chuckling.
バーカが綿流しの祭りにも顔を見せん。不信心者に決まっとろうがね。ちゃんとお社様を敬って祭りに来ちょるんは。そんな目には合わなんとよ。
Oryu kept laughing. Kimiyoshi and Makino didn't know how to react to that. June 20th, 1982, 9:04 p.m. So, I mean, but is she implying that the victim is some impudent lad who didn't come to the Watanagashi festival? Is she, like, it almost sounds like she's implying that the victim wasn't, oh, I forgot the aunt's name, but rather it was, Satoshi. But that doesn't really make sense. Maybe that's the angle she's going for, right? You might, like, I don't know, maybe they're the ones who disappear Satoshi. Let's just keep moving for now. That's interesting, though. June 20th, 1982, 9:04 p.m. What's up, Kumagai and Oishi? My dogs. Not really my dogs, but...
クマちゃん、死に方っていうのは本人が望んだものでない限り、どんなでも無残なもんです。
That's a good point.
お悔やみ申し上げちゃいますよ。そっちどう？ポッケの中身とか個人が特定できそうなものは？
The forensic investigators shook their heads.
サンダル履きで服装もラフ。近くにお住まいの方でしょうね。服装の特徴から周辺に聞き込みをすればすぐに割れそうっすね。
それしかないな。 課長からこの山一区捜査してかかりそうだからって脅されてます。
Yeah.
その辺注意してくださいよ。
了解っす。
Kumagai gathered some officers and gave them directions.
入江先生が到着しました。先生、あそこです。
The young doctor got out of his car and headed in the victim's direction.
どうも。
Bro is wearing just his casual clothes, but I guess it's not like he'd be in his, in his work outfit.
遅れて申し訳ありません。抽選会の手伝いの最中だったもので。
先生、今日の祭りでだいぶ飲んでたでしょう。アルコール本当に抜けてます？後で風船でも膨らましてもらっちゃおうかな。
ご安心を。運転はスタッフに代わってもらってますので。
そりゃそつがない。おい、先生通してあげて。
Bro called the doctor for help and said, "What if I did a breathalyzer on you?" Oh, there was an area cordoned off with blue plastic sheets. An officer rolled up the sheet and let Oishi and Irie pass. The forensic people were taking photos from many different angles. The blood spatters in the bloody sandals were left untouched, marked with chalk and indicated with small alphabetized plates. Alphabetized. Irie took out a handkerchief and covered his nose.
匂いがダメな時は口呼吸にするんですよ。まあ、こういう匂いは目でも嗅げちゃうかな。ね。
The body appeared to be that of a middle-aged woman. It was soaked in blood. It looked like a middle-aged woman because of the hair and what she was wearing. The reason why no one could be certain it was a middle-aged woman was because its face was completely pulverized.
ひどい。
十中八九怨恨の線でしょうな。
Yeah, you think?
血痕とサンダル裏から見て、ここで殺したのは間違いないでしょう。でも見ての通り、ここは人通りが少ないと言ったって、往来のど真ん中です。
I thought no one would run into it.
ここで頭部がひしゃげるまで殴り続けたってのは、ちょいとまともな話じゃないですからね。
Irie probably already knows who the victim is and who the murderer is, to be honest.
でね、ほら、腕とか見てみてください。
Oishi put on latex gloves and lifted the corpse's arm.
腕は綺麗なもんでしょう。
それはつまり、腕で防いだとか、抵抗したとか、そういう痕跡がないという意味ですね。
さすが高学歴。
Interesting.
仏さんは、おそらく最初の一撃で脳震盪かなんかで気絶したんじゃないかと思うんです。
Bro knows how to swing a bat, what can we say?
で、推しは確実に殺した手応えを得るためにさらに打撃を加えた。さらに言えば、仏さんはその時、うつ伏せに倒れたように思うんですよね。ねえ、服の汚れ具合からの勘ですが。
遺体は仰向けですね。
星は後頭部を散々潰して、明らかに頭蓋骨が砕けてる手応えを得ているにもかかわらず、わざわざ顔面を潰してるんじゃないかと思うんですよ。
Irie looked like he was going to throw up, both because of the putrid smell and Oishi's reasoning.
遺体の顔面を殴るってのは、私の経験じゃかなり怨恨の線が強いです。それもだいぶ濃厚な、濃密なね。
Yeah.
ってことはつまり、星は仏のかなり近辺にいるのは間違いないかと。
What? No.
私を呼んだのが救命活動ではないということはよくわかりました。
先生、この人が誰かわかりますかね。わかれば聞き込みの手間がだいぶ省けるんですがね。
Irie looked at the body once again. He looked away quickly and thought. Then, after a while, Irie left the investigation area without saying anything. Oh, he knows exactly who it is, though.
すみません。私にはわかりかねます。
本当に？
Oishi smirked and looked into Irie's eyes, as though Irie was hiding something.
別に隠してなんかいません。
Cap, but I respect it.
先生もアルコールがまだ抜けきってないだけですよ。頭が冴えたら思い出すかもしれません。思い出したら教えてくださいね。
Oishi tapped Irie on the back. The doctor, saying he wanted some fresh air, left the scene. Kumagai returned.
おいさん、課長から無線です。1号車の無線っす。
入江の先生、ごまかしたな。いえいえ、仏の聞き込み急いでください。ほぼ間違いなくこの近くにお住まいです。
Okay, so I took a quick break and have returned, but there's work in the basement again. I'm just gonna play through it and hope you guys can't hear it, because at this point I need to finish the episode, right? Like, I'm not trying to wait potentially hours to do the last 30 minutes or whatever of this episode. June 20th, 1982, 9:39 p.m.
おいさん、連れてきました。
どうもどうも。
Who has arrived?
こんな夜更けに申し訳ありませんね。
Is it gonna... Oh.
明日も学校なのに本当に申し訳ないです。
Ooh. Is this gonna be Satoshi?
いえ。
お父さんはどちらへ？
うちの寄付はあまり帰ってきませんので。
おお。いつ頃から？最後に帰ってきたのはいつ？
さあ、義母と喧嘩しているのを聞く限りは、沖宮でどこかのキャバレーの人と同棲してるとかなんとか。
Man, they were on his case this quick? 9:39 p.m. when they got Irie in, like, to question. What time? 9:04. So within like 30 minutes, they had him in and are probably already suspicious of Satoshi.
最後に会ったのはあまり覚えてないんですけど、先生
お父さんの連絡先はわかります？
いえ。
キャバレーの人と同居してるって言いましたよね。なんてお店かわかります？
いえ、沖宮のどこかにある。確か
お父さんの名前は？
北条哲平です。
Oishi signaled Kumagai with his chin, who nodded while taking notes.
お父さんとお母さんはあまり仲良くなかったですか？
程度の度合いはわかりませんが。
Maybe they think it was Tepe.
よくはなかったと思います。
What? What do you mean you don't know much about that?
率直に聞いて申し訳ないですけど、お母さんに恨みを持っていた人間とか知っていたら教えてほしいんですがね。
Me. Dash Satoshi.
よくわからないです。
そうですか。じゃあもしも思い出したらでいいので、その時は教えてくださいね。これ私の名刺です。ここに電話番号ありますので。
はい。
じゃあ後日またいろいろとお話を伺うこともあるかもしれません。
So they've identified who it was. Do they not actually suspect Satoshi yet? Or do they know he's lying?
もしもお父さんと連絡がつきましたら、沖宮警察署の大石まで至急ご連絡をとお伝えください。くまちゃん、北条さんを自宅まで送ってあげてください。
いえ、一人で帰れますから。
いえ、そんなこと言わずにぜひ送らせてくださいな。お母さんを襲った犯人がまだ近くにいる可能性があるんですよ。
Oh, he will be.
あなたもまた狙われない保証なんてないんですからね。
お気遣いありがとうございます。でも本当に結構ですね。
Satoshi tried to reject the offer, but Oishi and Kumagai insisted. In the end, Satoshi was forced to accept. He turned around to leave, when Oishi spoke to him as if he remembered something he'd forgotten to say.
北条さん。
はい。
大丈夫ですよ。心配しないでください。犯人はすぐに捕まりますよ。
手がかりとかあるんですか？
ありますよ。
Oh yeah, we do.
どんなですか？
捜査上の秘密ですよ。ね。
Ordinary people might think that Oishi was trying to cheer the poor kid up with a joke.
いえね。人を殺すってのはかなり感情の高ぶるもんなんですよ。そりゃ、冷静に殺してみせるロボットみたいなのも、
感情が高ぶると。
うん。人は極限まで感情が高ぶると、いろいろ体に反応が出ます。発汗とか、脱毛とかね。殺人現場に犯人の毛髪が落ちているってことは、割とあることなんですよ。まあ、ここは屋外ですからね。現場が絨毯の上ってのとは、だいぶ勝手が違いますが。
犯人の毛髪は拾えたんですか？
さあね。鑑識の連中が大列組んで、さっきから行ったり来たりして、いろいろ探してます。
He's trying to figure out if they're onto him yet, obviously.
まだ結果待ちでね。何が出るやら。
明日があるので、今夜はもう帰ります。
そうなさってください。クマちゃん、送ってあげてください。
了解っす。
では北条さん、また近いうちに。
Yeah?
進展があったらお知らせしますよ。
I don't know, does Satoshi go missing tonight? I don't remember. I think they made it sound like it was shortly after, though. So, probably not.
北条さんも何か思い出したりしたら、ぜひ教えてくださいね。憎き母の仇の逮捕に協力してまいりましょう。
It's a crazy mystery. We might never be able to solve this. Another jump, or is that it? No, another jump. Sis called the morning after the Watanagashi festival to tell me that the curse had struck again for the 4th time. The victim was the evil aunt who was harassing Satoshi-kun and Satoko. Satoshi-kun's suffering should be over now, since the problem was with Satoko and the aunt's relationship to begin with. Maybe I should have celebrated, but I wasn't in the mood for some reason.
犯人ってもう警察は目星をつけてるのかな？
Sis went quiet when I asked that.
さあね。大石の野郎がしつこく聞き込みをして回ってるみたい。犯人は近しい人間に違いないと思ってるようだね。
Being identical twins, Sis and I think very much alike. If I suspected Satoshi-kun of being the murderer, so would she. Because of this, I didn't have to mention the obvious.
サトシ君って祭りの日にアリバイあります？
I'm guessing he will soon enough.
どうだろう。
はあ、
I heaved a huge sigh.
バカですね。サトシ君は祭りに来ていた。そういうことでいいじゃないですか。
Okay, we do a little bit of lying.
そうだよね。気が利かなくてごめん。
I heaved another sigh. Sis was stupid enough to forget to make an alibi for him, even though the murder of his aunt alone would raise enough suspicion.
じゃあ、やっぱり、サトシが？
サトシ君が殺したかどうかが問題じゃないでしょ。サトシ君が犯行の時間帯にアリバイがあったかが重要なんです。たく。
後で警察がうちに来るみたいだから、来たらサトシは祭りで一緒だったって言うよ。
お姉、取ってつけた嘘なんか何の役にも立たないです。何も手を打たなかったなら、今さら小細工しても無駄ってことです。せいぜい正直に喋ってください。
Dang.
お姉は芝居が下手なんだから、変に意識するとかえって勘ぐられますからね。
ごめん。
That is problematic. You gotta wonder if that's why things were so strong the next year, right? If it was we all know in advance what Keiichi is doing right now, and we all are going to be in on this. He was here. She sounded depressed. I was the one who should have been depressed. Mion usually handles things well, but she's not too good with emergencies. I was left worried for the future of the Sonozaki family. Mion must have been embarrassed. She soon changed the subject.
シオン、最近はあまりバイトに行けてなかったでしょ？
ご検察痛み入ります。おかげさまで。
ごめん。
Thanks to you? What?
今日は私、 夜まで姿を隠してるからバイトに出られるんじゃない？
She's more likely to go, like, try to help Satoshi if you had tonight. Sis has been appearing in public places during festival preparations and whatnot. Well, okay, never mind. I take it back. Yeah, you're right. As a result, I hadn't been able to pretend to be her. I thought, this was because of the whole, like, beating down Satoko incident. She was like, we are not swapping. I hadn't been able to work. As someone who had to support myself, it was a bit of a pain. To be honest, I didn't feel like working. But I couldn't afford to be sitting around either. Yeah, that's real. When I locked my apartment door before leaving, the door of the next apartment over opened and Kasai appeared.
シオンさん、お出かけですか？
そんなとこです。お姉が姿を隠してくれるそうなんで、久々にバイトに出ます。笠井、暇だったらおじさんの店まで車を出してもらってもいい？
シオンさん、しばらくはバイトを控えられた方がよろしくはないですか？事件のせいで警察は園崎家界隈を監視しているようですし、あまり姿を表に出さない方がいいのではないかと思います。
Yeah, I mean, if you get her to not go to work, I promise you she's not staying home.
お気遣いは嬉しいけど、バイトしないと食費もないわけですし。
Kasai might suggest he'd donate money to my cause. However, I'd sworn to myself when I started living here that I wouldn't depend on Kasai. While I don't obey anyone else's rules, I stick to my own. Kasai could tell that I was adamant in my decision. So, after repeating himself a couple of times as a formal procedure, he decided to give me a ride after all. Every time we went to my uncle's store by car, we stopped at this traffic light. I knew it was going to happen again, but it still irritated me. Pedestrians passed by in front of the car. I was startled to see that one of them looked like Satoshi-kun. It was him. Though I'd spoken with him on the phone just a couple of days before, it had been a while since I saw him last.
笠井、悪いけどおじさんに、やっぱ今日のバイトは行けなくなったって伝えてくれる？私、ここで降ります。
え？シオンさん。
Kasai looked taken aback, but I got out of the car regardless. The light turned green. The car behind him honked while Kasai was shouting at me, so he had to start moving. Satoshi-kun was on his bike, but he was going really slowly. I caught up with him in a flash and tapped him on the back.
ハロローン。沖宮で会うなんて奇遇ですね、サトシ君。
If I talked to him with a smile, he might smile back. So I smiled as brightly as I could.
ミオン。
So we're here to assist with the cover-up. He looked tired as always, but no, he's definitely running away. Maybe there is some truth that he ran away. But as I could tell, he was trying to smile back. My worries suddenly disappeared. I was certain I looked happy. I was aware of that myself, so it must have been obvious to Satoshi-kun.
何があったか知らないけど、ミオンが楽しそうだね。
ええ、楽しいですよ。サトシ君の機嫌が良さそうなので、私も釣られて機嫌が良くなっただけです。
When I teased him, he looked a bit embarrassed. It was like we were back in the good old days. I felt even happier than before.
サトシ君こそ、何か機嫌が良くなるようないいことがありましたか？
いいことなんかないよ。おばさんが亡くなって、警察とかご近所とか、いろいろ大変だよ。
I might have asked something dumb. He seemed to be okay with it, though. He'd frowned a bit at first, but Satoshi-kun continued smiling gently. He looked worn out, but satisfied, like he had accomplished something great. That was the mood I sensed from him. So, I was convinced. The one who killed that wicked aunt who tormented Satoko was him. I had absolutely no proof, but I knew it intuitively. So I omitted all those questions. I knew Satoshi-kun's motive for killing his aunt, and how badly he was driven into a corner. I knew the environment and the situation he was in. And I knew Satoshi-kun's feelings. I knew all of that. So I omitted all those questions. I wanted to celebrate his release from that curse, so I smiled like nothing was different as I asked.
サトシ君はどこかへお出かけですか？あ、バイトかな？
正解。その前に寄り道なんだけどね。
寄り道？
毎日ちゃんとショーケースにあるのを確認しないとなんだか不安で。
So this is the day he buys the bear. That conversation reminded me. The reason he started his part-time job was to buy Satoko a huge teddy bear. It was being sold at the toy store just down the street. I recalled that the teddy bear was very expensive. Satoko's birthday was right after the festival. I wasn't sure what day, though. I think it's literally today. Wait, didn't he say he quit his job? Maybe he was going to greet his ex-co-workers and clean out his locker or something? Either way, he'd be completely free soon. Very soon. Maybe he hadn't been paid yet. That's why he wanted to check if they still had the teddy bear. Maybe he was only getting paid on Satoko's birthday. When we got near the toy store, he rushed to the display window. Is it gone already? He looked relieved that it hadn't been sold yet. No, it's not gone. Okay, so he actually might buy it.
よかったよかった。大丈夫。ちゃんとあるよ。
買えるだけのお金は稼げてるわけですよね。なら予約とかしちゃえばいいのに。
He probably hadn't thought of that. He really did need someone to look after him. I looked into the display window over his shoulder. The teddy bear wasn't that cute, in my opinion. It looked huge and cramped in the middle of the store's showcase. Really, it looked more like a display model than an item for sale.
値札がついてないけど、これ本当に売り物なんですか？これ一体いくらするんです？
売り物なのは確認したから間違いないよ。
Don't tell me you don't even know.
値段は？予算は大丈夫？
大丈夫だよ。ちゃんと確認してあるよ。
Satoshi-kun thought I was teasing him again. He pouted and looked a little sulky.
予算が大丈夫なら問題ないじゃないですか。なら予約しちゃいましょう。その方がサトシ君も心の荷が下りていいでしょうしね。
We entered the store and looked for a clerk.
誰もいないのかな。
そりゃ好都合です。サトシ君、お給料日を待たずにぬいぐるみが手に入るかもですね。
Yeah, nice try.
ダメだよミオン。泥棒はいけないよ。
冗談ですって。軽く受け流してほしかったんだけどな。ひょっとして私が盗っ人の真似を平気でできる女だと思ってます？
あ、ごめん。
Satoshi-kun smiled apologetically. I puffed up my cheeks to tease him. It had really been a while since the last time we did this. In between those times, many undesirable things happened that I wanted to forget. Now I felt as though all those things simply vanished into the air around us. I found an old person napping in the back. He must be the clerk, I thought. He looked to be fast asleep.
お店の方ですよね。
I poked his shoulder, but he didn't look like he was going to wake up. When I did that, a middle-aged woman wearing an apron came in.
おじいちゃん、店番頼んだのにすっかり眠りしちゃった。お客さん来てるってのにもうごめんなさいね。うちのおじいちゃんももうすっかりボケちゃって。
The middle-aged woman shook the old man awake and told him to go back to the living room. She went to the cash register after that.
お恥ずかしいところ見せちゃってごめんなさいね。何かお買い上げ？
買うんじゃなくて予約なんですけど、あのショーケースの中の一番大きいぬいぐるみなんですけど。
あれ？いいの？値札見た？かなり高いけどお小遣い。
はい、ギリギリ足りるはずです。
もうすぐバイトのお給料が入るそうなので、それまで予約したいんですけど。
The woman looked a bit hesitant at first, but she eventually wrote down Satoshi-kun's name and accepted the reservation. Satoshi-kun received a slip of paper.
ね、これでもう誰かに先に買われちゃう心配はもう必要ありません。
お給料がもらえるのはもうすぐなんだけどね。これで安心できる。
He would have kept coming to check every day if he hadn't done this now. He would have spent his time needlessly worrying. Satoshi-kun looked very relieved indeed.
これならもっと早くに予約をしていればよかったな。
Well, better late than never, right?
普通の人は欲しいと思ったら即予約します。そういう思考に至らないサトシ君はちょいと希少です。
It's so very fun to tease him. Those painful days seem unbelievable now. Satoshi-kun looked like he'd forgotten everything that happened up until yesterday.
でもありがとう。
Satoshi-kun held out his hand to touch my head. Was he going to stroke it? I felt my face reddening already. Even before he touched my head, I felt tingly remembering the last time. I didn't care about the murder or whatever else happened. As long as Satoshi-kun had his freedom, everything would be alright. I'd be content as long as we could live happily from today onward. But Satoshi-kun's hand never reached my head. I slowly opened my eyes, only to realize that the situation had drastically changed. Are there police officers or something? There were 4 men in suits blocking our way. It looked as though they'd been waiting for us to exit the toy store.
Domo domo.
Well. If it isn't Oishi, and probably Kumagai. The oldest of the 4 men stepped forward while smirking. I'd never met this man, but it looked like he knew both Mion and Satoshi-kun. He was probably a cop. I ran a search for information in my head, and found some right away.
Konnichiwa. Hojo-san, Sonozaki-san. いい雰囲気だったところを邪魔しちゃって実に申し訳ないです。
This must be Karado Oishi. Oh yeah. Time to devolve into pure hatred. If I had to guess. The cop is investigating the series of mysterious deaths. He thinks that the Sonozaki family is behind all of the cases. In other words, he's an enemy of the Sonozaki family. He has deep connections with the other investigation divisions in the police force, and likes to nose around the businesses in this area. He annoys the Sonozaki family enough as it is by interfering with its Yakuza business, let alone his suspicions of the series of mysterious deaths. Naturally, as the family's successor, he's not a welcome figure to Mio and Sonozaki. I try to imagine how Sis would react.
ありゃ、大石さんですか。お仕事ご苦労様です。大の大人が4人も揃って、おもちゃ屋さんに何かご用で？まさかお人形さん買いに来たってわけでもあるまいに。
I know what they want, and it's not a toy. It's probably not me, either. They want Satoshi-kun. I took a look at Satoshi-kun. He seemed a bit uncomfortable. The other 3 cops loosely surrounded us to prevent our escape.
北条さん、実はですね、ちょいと伺いたいお話がありまして。
何それ？任意同行ってやつ？サトシ君、こんなのに付き合う必要ないよ。行こう。
I pushed on his shoulder, but he just stood there, looking pale and bewildered. Bewildered? No, he actually looked resigned. Then I recalled Sis's mistake. It's obvious that he killed his aunt from the circumstances. You don't even have to look at the crime scene. How could Mion have failed to create an alibi? That stupid Mion must have spoken to the police without making anything up at all. She must not have told them that she knew where Satoshi-kun was. If she hadn't done anything, the villagers wouldn't work to help her. It was just a matter of time until the police uncovered Satoshi-kun's complete lack of an alibi. Didn't you tell her not to make anything up? And that it'd just make things worse? The police were trying to corner him and lead him to confess. I looked at Satoshi-kun's face once again. He looked like a dead man. He probably didn't know he could refuse to be interrogated. He was taken to the station and grilled by Oishi. He'd confess in a minute. Somebody had to protect him. Nobody had ever been there for him. I had to step up now. But how? Would it be possible to alter what Mion had already told them, saying it was a mistake? That wasn't going to work. If I had more time, I'd come up with an excellent idea, but I didn't have that much time at all. To pressure him, the cops were drawing nearer. Satoshi-kun must have felt intimidated. He might end up turning himself in due to the pressure while I'm stuck trying to come up with something. I have to do something now. I have to say something. Otherwise, Satoshi-kun might give in. I have to save him. Oishi drew nearer. Satoshi-kun fell back.
大して時間は取らせませんから、そんな怖がらないでください。
It won't take much time. He just said it. He just said he wouldn't let him out if he caught him now. What? Did he say that? Satoshi-kun, don't give in. If you give in now, everything you've been working for will be ruined. Yeah, I don't know that he can... I don't think he's going to be able to endure this. You have to do something, Shion. Satoshi-kun looked like he was at his breaking point. Oishi was clearly aware of it. Oishi smirked and held out his arm to grab Satoshi-kun's shoulder. I felt electrified when I saw that. That hand shouldn't be allowed to touch Satoshi-kun. The moment Oishi touched his shoulder, he'd give in. He'd go to the police station and confess everything. What are you about to, like...
サトシ君にアリバイがあるか知りたいわけですよね。
Oishi turned his face toward me, his hand left hanging in the air. I wasn't very prepared for this. I just had to stop Oishi no matter what. I only needed to gain some time. It didn't really matter what I said.
そうですよ。北条聡さんのアリバイが知りたいんです。私たちの捜査がまずいからなのかな。
That's
犯行の時
crazy.
間帯にどうしても北条さんのアリバイが見つけられないんですよ。
Man, I wonder where he was.
仕方ないから、恥を忍んでご本人に直接そのあたりをお伺いしようかと思いましてね。
そんなの本人に聞く必要ないです。私がアリバイ証明しますから。
ありゃ、そりゃほんと。なら助かるな。あの晩園崎さんが神社にいてお祭りの最後まで過ごしていたことはすでにあなたからも聞いているし、その他大勢の方からも証言を得ています。
Is she gonna do it? Is she gonna reveal that she's Shion?
そのあなたがそこで北条さんとも一緒だったと言ってくれるなら一番楽なんですがね。
It might work.
でもあんた、以前そのあたりをお聞きしたとき、北条さんのことは一言も言ってませんよね。
Revealing yourself as Shion and saying she was with him might work.
実はいましてって、今頃おっしゃるおつもりで？祭り会場の誰一人、北条さんを見ていないのに、あなただけは見ていたとそうおっしゃるおつもりで？
そうです。私と一緒にいました。それで十分です。
あなたが仲良しのお友達と終始一緒にいたのは分かっているし、私も会場で実際にお見かけしています。
Yeah, I mean, this isn't gonna work. Saying he was at Watanagashi, zero shot. But
それでも一緒にいたとおっしゃるわけで？そいつはちょっと苦しくない？
a little bit. Oishi approached me with a creepy smile. Was he teasing me because my excuse sounded funny? I didn't think so. He was frustrated due to being interrupted when he was about to catch a big fish.
祭り会場でずっと一緒に遊んでたのに、すっかり忘れてて今頃になって思い出したと、そうおっしゃるおつもり？園崎美音さん。
If she's gonna say it, it's now. I did get a little scared, but I couldn't stop myself. I could save Satoshi-kun if I revealed my real identity. I was aware of the risk. Grandma would certainly capture me if I revealed it. I didn't think of the consequences after that. Notebook page 27.
っていうか、私ミオンじゃないですし。だからもともと綿流しになんか行ってません。
あ？
サトシ君とは綿流しの晩は沖宮のファミレスでずっとおしゃべりしてました。
I love the parallels with this CG. I love that. The obvious parallel to the very same one in chapter 2.
エンジェルモートって店ですので、どうぞ店長にも確認を取ってください。
Oishi was still smirking, but he apparently felt confused.
あんた、何を言ってるの？あんたミオンじゃないなら誰なわけ？
園崎、シオンです。ミオンの双子の妹です。初めてお会いしますね。こんにちは。
Oishi looked perplexed, like he didn't believe what I'd said. He frowned. I can only imagine Satoshi's like, huh? Like, wait, does that explain, like, a lot of things?
園崎美音さんに双子の妹がいたなんて初めて知りましたよ。あんた、大人をからかってんの？
からかってなんかないですよ。どうぞ戸籍でも何でも調べてみてください。それともお姉を呼んで二人で並んでみせれば信じます？
All the cops looked bewildered now.
園崎シオンさん？
はい。シオンですが、何か？
あんたにもちょっと来てもらってもいいですかね。あんたが園崎シオンさんで北条さんと一緒におられたって言うんなら、あんたにも話を聞かせてもらいたいもんです。
Like a Sonozaki's gonna cooperate with you.
お手柔らかによろしくお願いいたします。
Really? The cops gathered at their car and started discussing something. Looked like they never expected this to happen. I hope to be able to fake Satoshi-kun's alibi for at least a little while. It shouldn't be too difficult to talk to Sis about this, then forge up an alibi together.
サトシ君、何を聞かれてもエンジェルモードで私とおしゃべりをして過ごしていたと言い張ってください。私が何とかしますから。何を聞かれてもよく覚えていないとか。サトシ君なら下手なことは言わず黙り込んだ方が無難かもです。
Satoshi-kun wore a startled expression. Though I was telling him something important, he'd apparently decided not to listen.
サトシ君、聞いてます？ここでしっかりしないと。
He must have been feeling deceived. No wonder. I just confessed that I wasn't Mion, but her twin sister. I really had been deceiving him.
怒ってます？
なんで？
騙してて。
Satoshi-kun started laughing. I didn't know why he'd laugh. Because he wasn't the type of person who would laugh in order to hide something.
たまに教室のミオンと話が食い合わないことがあったから違和感は感じてたんだ。
Yeah, he's like, oh, that makes so much sense.
やっとわかったよ。
怒らないでくれるんですか？騙してたこと。
Satoshi-kun looked puzzled. It was like he didn't know whether he should be upset about it or not. Or maybe he was only pretending to be that way.
はじめまして。じゃないんだよね。
はい、そうなります。
At least he's not gonna vanish, never having even known that Shion existed.
そっか。シオンってどう書くの？
詩を読むの詩に音でシオンです。
シオン。いい名前だね。
じゃあお二人さん、
Oh, Lord.
すみませんが署までご同行願いますかね。
You're gonna say all that?
粉末でよければコーヒーか紅茶かくらいは選べますよ。
Bro got game. Without even realizing it. Okay, I mean, like I said, eventually this had to be revealed, right? I'm just glad it was before Satoshi bit the dust. Well, that's all we're gonna get. Alright, so we're gonna go through the tips and whatnot, and we'll probably wrap it up here. Especially because they're vacuuming behind me. I can't imagine it's gonna get more quiet anytime soon. Notebook page 29. Either Satoshi-kun was very smart or very lucky. Or maybe it wasn't him. The police found nothing at the crime scene to indicate his involvement in the murder. Yet Satoshi-kun was still the prime suspect. Considering his home environment, he had a strong enough motive. He had no alibi. The police had everything other than physical evidence. It wasn't surprising that Oishi took a chance. He probably didn't expect me to step in. But what I did was too little to avert a suspicion of Satoshi-kun. Oishi believed that Satoshi-kun did it. He was waiting for Satoshi-kun to fall apart and confess. That's what both Oishi and I were thinking. But that hypothesis was destroyed later on. I'll not talk about it now, but Oishi's theory will be disproven, and the police will be thrown into shock. A question comes to mind. That is, who saved Satoshi-kun? I can only think of the possibility that the Sonozaki family invented the culprit. Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I thought before, was that it was like the Sonozakis somehow did it. I don't know, maybe like Mion intervened, maybe even Oryu. Like, I don't know. Oryu getting involved would be kind of crazy, but like after like basically disowning Shion and saying, you're not allowed to reveal yourself. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about this episode. So, like, we've already talked about the last chapter, which was actual just insanity. With the scene with at the school and the phone call. This one we just viewed was also very interesting, though, and I'm excited for more. Because Satoshi-kun very clearly killed his aunt, right? Which was something we already knew, right? With a lot of confidence, right? I was very sure that Satoshi did it, right? Shion knows it, Mio knows it, everyone knows it, right? Everyone around the place knows Satoshi did it, right? I think the most interesting thing about the build-up, up until maybe up right about here for the night of Watanagashi, was probably the comparisons with Keiichi, right? When we specifically saw things like him. I can't remember the words. I remember at one point he said like he felt like he metamorphosed, right? But like that he was stronger, faster, had a sixth sense, right? That's how Keiichi felt. So you almost gotta wonder if that's just like a thing that's kind of part of this, right? Part of getting cursed, right? Even though I'm still not completely sure that Keiichi was cursed up to that point, with the similarities, it's kind of hard to deny. It all really hinges on if we think Satoshi has been cursed before now yet. Which, I mean, he probably, like, it feels like this isn't, like, I don't think he just now developed, you know, like, what I'm assuming is Hinamizawa syndrome. It sounded like with his like report to Rena that he'd already experienced some of the symptoms, so it's hard to believe that he just, I don't know, he just is just now getting the symptoms, which is what I assumed was true of Keiichi. So you gotta assume that it was true beforehand. Again, the timelines are something I'm gonna have to work out later. I shouldn't look too in depth into that right now. But it's interesting for sure. But like I said, those comparisons with Keiichi are interesting, and it might change some of my perspective on what was going on with Keiichi there. But other than that, obviously we get to the end there, he's reserving the teddy bear, and Shion finally reveals the truth of who she is, in an attempt to save Satoshi, which buys them some time, and then eventually the fabricated culprit will show up, which is interesting, right? We're gonna have to see that. Like, I'm looking forward to how that plays out. Really, it's like that, and how much longer we have with Satoshi, and how he acts before his disappearance, and whether we know anything more about his disappearance is what's really intriguing me. I thought this was a really good episode. I think the first part was honestly a little stronger than the second, for me at least. Which is maybe a little crazy, but like, I don't know. If you didn't already have that hunch that Satoshi killed his aunt, then I can imagine this was kind of crazy. But I was so confident in it that like it didn't really, I guess, like shock me at all. It wasn't even like ooh, they confirmed my theory. I was like, I would have been truly unbelievably shocked if that wasn't the case. So a lot of this kind of felt like it was building with Satoshi, like he killed her, right? And it's like, yeah, duh, right? Like for me at least. There were some other interesting things, like Irie clearly lying for him. He clearly knows what happened, so maybe he's going to be the one who helps his steps in somehow. I don't know. The people trying to cover this up, it is fascinating to see that, you know? Those last, like, 15, 20 minutes, maybe, of Shion meeting Satoshi, I thought that was interesting. I enjoyed that part of the episode, or the chapter, but prior to that, this chapter was a lot of, like, important information that, like I said, basically already knew. I don't know, there was some, I'm kind of underselling it a bit. There was some other interesting stuff, like Rika obviously knows that this happens, right? And she tells Satoko as much, like, this is the last day you've got to worry about this, right? And Satoko's like, stop giving me hope, right? Like, don't give me false hopes. And Rika's like, I don't know, I can only imagine she's like, yep, false hopes, okay, right? No, she's lived this, she's seen this. She knows what is happening, right? So I feel like that, again, kind of helps any, like, Rika time loop theory. Rika knows things. But again, I don't know that those theories really needed proven. Chapter 4 literally comes out and tells you. If Chapter 4 hadn't literally come out and tell us, that would have been a lot more interesting. Like, a lot more interesting. But Chapter 4 literally all but comes out and tells us, hey, Rika has knowledge of... No, it doesn't even all but do that. They literally come out and tell you, hey, Rika knows the future. She does. Like, for real, she does. You know? Like, they really don't hide it. So, obviously that would have been a lot more intriguing if Chapter 4 didn't exist, but it's still good to see. still good to see that being consistent, right? That chapter 3 Rika is also consistent with that characterization, right? Interesting stuff there. There's a lot of interesting small things. I think both of these were strong chapters overall. I'm looking forward to playing more. Maybe with some luck, I'll be able to play some more tonight. Kind of depends on how the noise ends up. I don't know. Maybe you guys couldn't even hear anything, and I've been worrying for nothing. But you know, it distracts me at the very least. But like I said, hopefully I'll get to record again soon. This is an intriguing chapter. I'm looking forward to seeing how this plays out a bit more. Man. But until then, peace.